To be a better storyteller, you need to learn to be a better story listener.
Welcome to the podcast. Here's your host, Craig T. Owens.
Why is it important to tell good stories? Well, good stories help your message stick. Now, there's one thing about sharing facts, and that's an important component of communication, but you can't have just the facts and nothing but the facts. Those won't stick as well, but neither can you just rely on emotion. That will move people for a certain extent, but it's not really going to stick long-term as well if it's just emotion. We need to have a combination of both our head and our heart. And so that means that you need to have your facts, but you need to tell that story in a compelling way, in a way that grabs a hold of people's hearts and emotions. And so that's why I say to be a better storyteller, you need to be a better story listener. Now, one of the things that I have appreciated in my life, in fact, I can't even remember how young I was when my mom first gave me a couple of cassette tapes. Now, for some of you that are watching this, you might even say, cassette tape, what's that? And believe it or not, we used to listen to our music and things that way. That'll tell you a little bit of how long ago that was. But she gave me some recordings of things that were even older than that. They were programs of old-time radio broadcasts. Now, radio used to be referred to as the theater of the mind, because your eyes couldn't see characters. You didn't know what they looked like. You couldn't see the setting. And so they had to use their words. They had to use some sound effects to be able to portray to you what they were trying to get across. One of my favorite shows to listen to was a show that originally kind of came from vaudeville. It was called Fibber McGee and Molly. Marion and Jim Jordan were the husband and wife team that played these characters. It originally started as the Johnson Wax Company's show, starring Fibber McGee and Molly, and what a cast of characters they had. I recently read this book that is called Heavenly Days. It's a phrase that Molly, that she's the one standing here, used to say when her husband Fibber would come up with these harebrained ideas. She'd say, "Oh, heavenly days." Now, that kind of resonated with me because my grandma Owens used to use that phrase a lot as well. But what I loved about these stories is that they had a cast of characters that would come in and out of the show. They had a way of telling the story that grabbed your imagination. They had a way of setting up jokes where you knew that they were coming, but at the last minute they could change them. For instance, this picture on the front, I don't know if you can really tell, but Marion or Molly is standing here and she's talking to Fibber, who's laying down here on the ground and he's covered in a pile of stuff. This was the famous gag that they had on their show, The Closet. Fibber would store everything. He was a notorious pack rat. He never threw anything out. And he stored all this stuff in his closet. And anytime that somebody opened the closet, all of the items would come falling out on him. And so there was an ongoing gag. So you knew that if the closet door opened, that people were in for a big surprise. And they would set that gag up. And yet there would be times that people would get close to the closet and they wouldn't open it. And on a couple of occasions, people opened the closet and nothing happened. And I won't go into the rest of the story of why that was. But they were great storytellers. And if you close your eyes and you just listen to some stories, or maybe you pull out a book instead of watching a TV show or a movie where you have rich character development, you have a very good use of words to be able to tell you the story. What you're doing in your own mind is developing your own library. When you are trying to get a point across to somebody, you may be leading an organization, or you may be just trying to convince your friend of something. You may just be wanting to tell something that is going to be memorable. It's going to stick. If you can use facts for their head, and if you can use very picturesque language, if you can find creative, colorful ways to tell the story, it's going to connect with their heart as well. And if you can connect with their head, with the facts, and with their heart, with the emotions, with the story, your message is going to stick. It's a great leadership tool. It's a great way to make yourself memorable. It's a great way to win your point if you can tell better stories. But you're going to tell better stories if you listen to better stories. By the way, this book here is a behind the scenes of how Marion and Jim Jordan became Fibber McGee and Molly, how they connected with the writers that they used and all their different casts of characters. It's written by Charles Stumpf and Tom Price. It's a delightful book. If you aren't familiar with Fibber McGee and Molly, look up some of their episodes, take a listen. There's a lot of them that are on the internet that you can listen to. If you know about Fibber McGee and Molly and you want to go a little deeper, I recommend this book. This is a delightful read to learn more about them. But listen to good stories so you can tell better stories so you can be a better leader.
Contact Craig and keep up with his blog posts, books, and other videos at craigtowens.com.